Good evening, everyone. My name is Malik Washington. How you all doing this fine day or evening, wherever you all reside? I pray that all is well with each and every one of you who are currently watching this video and those who aren't. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to dive right on into the topic. Today's episode is going to be concerning an event that happened around last Sunday or Monday when Juneteenth was currently in the midst. There was a shooting that happened in Milwaukee, Wisconsin on Martin Luther King and Chamber, where black teens got together as well as adults in recognition and celebration of the newly federalized holiday known as Juneteenth, or formerly known as Freedom Day. Juneteenth is a celebration where African Americans gather together to celebrate the emancipation of slavery, but particularly the holiday was originally in reference to Texan slaves who did not recognize that they were actually free from slavery, but the slave masters didn't let it be known in due time. They kept them in slavery for quite some time afterwards. Only until a white man by the name of Colonel, I believe his name is Major Green, came along and he let it be known to the slaves that they were finally freed from the shackles of the U.S. slavery that was once implemented and was once legal, starting from the 1600s on up. Originally, slavery had ended officially, and it was ratified on December 6, 1865. It was passed by Congress as being abolished on January 31st, 1865. But these slaves in particular did not know that slavery had ended, and as a result, they eventually were emancipated from it. Since that time, it has been a tradition of the people who are descendants of these Texan slaves to celebrate this as as a gesture of goodwill and in remembrance of their ancestors who had faced the tumultuous events related to being slaves in America. Though this was supposed to be a symbolic time of which blacks are supposed to, African Americans in particular, were supposed to come together, eventually around the year 2019, this eventually became a federalized holiday, which Joe Biden officially made it so that African Americans will have the ability to celebrate a time of which they have now been independently removed from that evil practice. Unfortunately, in this event, as well as in many other previous events that have happened in past times when blacks get together, there seems to be a constant pattern of blacks constantly killing each other left and right when they gather in large numbers. And eventually they start shooting each other, they get into fights, and it festers into what we then see, which is a mass shooting. Now, in this article, it talks about this Milwaukee shooting where 6 people were hurt as a result of being in this celebration where blacks were all gathered, where there were I believe there was 2 or more teens who had guns held between the ages of 14 and 19, that when a fight escalated between 2 girls, somebody got intemperate and they decided to shoot their gun. They were trigger happy. And as a result, a few people got hurt in the process. Nobody really was having a good time, obviously, because people were getting hurt and were running around panicking because bullets were flying around and ricocheting everywhere, because clearly these boys couldn't keep their trigger in their pants. But apparently they felt the need to go on ahead and say, hey, let me go ahead and lit it up real quick because I don't give a shit about the people that's around me. And I damn sure don't give a shit about this holiday or anything. And because I want some action, so I'm going to make the action happen for myself. I would like to read this article to you all in description of what exactly happened during this period, and then give my basic take on this entire event, like I always do with every other topic that I talk about. So it starts off by saying, and I will share it in the description in case you all want to go and read about it, in case you haven't heard about this already. But it basically goes on to say, this is from Fox 32, Chicago, says 6 people were shot near Chambers and MLK, just as Milwaukee's Juneteenth celebration came to an end Monday, June 19th, around 4 p.m. It stemmed from a fight between girls, police said. After a day of Juneteenth celebrations where thousands in our community gathered peacefully, said Milwaukee Police Chief Jeffrey Norman, police said the victims ranged in age from 14 to 19, 4 girls and 2 boys. MPD said the shooter was a 17-year-old boy who was also shot during the incident. Police added that investigators are looking for others who were involved. Quote, Milwaukee, what's going on with our children, said Chief Norman. Parents, guardians, elders, we need to engage and ensure that this violence that our children are bringing to these streets cease. No handgun, no weapon of destruction should be in the hands of our young ones. It's important that all of us do something. Milwaukee Mayor Cavalier Johnson stressed that this didn't happen during Juneteenth celebrations, but as the block party was wrapping up. There were families out here, said Mayor Johnson. There were kids out here. There were babies out here. If you are an adult or a young person, you've got your hands on a gun and you are ill-tempered, right? Don't come to stuff like this. Don't come. Get the help that you need. You don't have the right to steal the joy that this community felt. You don't have the right to endanger babies in this community. You don't have the right to put the men and women of this department and our partners in the Office of Violence Prevention in harm's way because you want to go out there and act stupid with a gun. And that's what it is. It's stupidity. Camellia Pickett was nearby with family when the gunfire erupted. It's sad, she said. How can we celebrate when it's our own? Our children are doing that. Our children that are doing the shootings. Pickett said they ran and took cover. Sorry. We don't know what's going on, but we hear the shooting, she said. For Pickett, the day with family filled with celebration was ultimately tarnished by violence. It's supposed to be a celebration only for it to end the way that it did, she said. I'm disappointed. I'll never come to Juneteenth again. Not here. I hate to say it. Arguments should not lead to guns fired off, period, said Mayor Johnson, period. Anyone with information is asked to please contact Milwaukee Police. And I would definitely suggest that for anyone that is watching this, that is from Milwaukee, to definitely follow through with that if that is the case. Unfortunately, this is something that, regardless as to the politics of the holiday, because I know, of course, a lot of people have their discontent and their disliking of this holiday, particularly because the holiday seems to, for one, it seems kind of weird to federalize it, given the fact that it wasn't actually in reference to all African Americans. It was in reference to only a select few in Texas. And why Black Americans took this holiday and just generally made it about everybody as if it is a form of Independence Day for all is beyond my comprehension, because the actual day that we should and had celebrated should have been either January 31st, 1865 or December 6, 1865, when slavery was actually ratified and abolished. But I guess maybe because there's a stigma with President Lincoln into Black Americans is perhaps the reason they don't want to celebrate it. Maybe you guys can give me the reasons as to why in the comment section below. I would like to hear what you have to say about the subject matter. But nonetheless, I think that those days should have been the actual days that African Americans celebrate this day or independence from slavery. I absolutely have no problem whatsoever with African Americans doing that, because that is that is a peculiar special day for a group of people who was eventually systemically oppressed by America around that period. And so to be able to recognize that we were finally removed from that horrible practice or that horrible institution definitely gives us the ability to have something to be happy about, because we are no longer shackled to that type of practice. I think that the day Juneteenth, which was actually for the Texan slaves and back in Texas, that should have been exclusively for them. But I digress. People are doing what they want to do. Now, I hear from different sides, particularly the right, which I don't address enough, because there are some things that they say I disagree with as well, where one particular thing that was stated was that this day was taking away from the Independence Day, which is the 4th of July, which is in reference to all Americans, whether if you're Black, white, or in between, who are American to this day, to celebrate the independence of America from Britain. So even though Juneteenth is something that was in relation to slavery, that particular history is American history, and it should apply to all forms of independence in America. However, to me, I feel like, and in addition, they said that it takes away from the 4th of July, as if they're trying to remove the 4th of July from Americans and giving them a different type of Independence Day to celebrate. Well, first off, It's only a select group of people that are actually celebrating that day, and that's particularly Black Americans. If white people just so happen to be celebrating it, it's probably because they just want to participate with their fellow man in enjoying the festivities and, you could say, the cultural phenomenon that's going on as it relates to people being filled with joy as a result of celebrating this day. I particularly don't celebrate Juneteenth myself because it doesn't necessarily apply to me or my ancestral pedigree in particular. That would apply to me for December 6th, 1865, not Juneteenth, as it relates to the people in Texas. But that's just me being technical. But in reality, I don't care for any holiday anyway, because it's just not me. I've become pretty jaded when it comes to holidays, particularly because, well, they get kind of old. And not to mention, they have some pagan roots to them, in which I don't personally participate in paganistic roots personally. So I don't care too much for them, but to each their own who chooses to celebrate all these holidays for fun's sake, for hedonistic purposes, or whatever your reasons are for why you do the things that you do, or to gather at, with families and things of that nature. Me personally, I just don't care for them. And that's pretty much all there is to it, including Juneteenth. And I'm just being honest in that regard. I'd rather be genuine than to be fake about it. I don't particularly care about that. How I try to how I try to be, let's say, honorable in my ancestors' eyes, which they couldn't see me do what I do anyway. But what I attempt to do is to recognize that, yes, a horrible thing did happen to my people, to many of them, but by being in slavery alone. But overall, given that they survived it, and given that they were establishing themselves in a very difficult period in which they were treated wrong coming out of slavery, I want to make sure that I take everything that they have done to get up to this point of singularity, which is me, and make sure that I make it happen and become successful in the world and take advantage of the privileges that I have been granted while I'm here, because I could be in a worse place. So that's how I celebrate my ancestors. And I don't need a day to do that. And I don't need the white man or anybody. And this is not in a racialized way, but I'm just being honest. I don't need white people to give me a bone in order for me to celebrate my ancestors. I don't need for white people to federally recognize that slavery was an evil institution in order for me to realize that I'm a free man and I can do whatever the hell it is I choose to do. So long as I'm in this country, I can make a choice to either get above my circumstances and not choose to allow the systemic oppression of way back when to be a crutch for me now, and just continually try to be the best that I can be as a person of color, or you could say a mixed person of color here in the United States of America. I'm not looking for anyone to give me attention. I'm not looking for anyone to feel sorry for me because of what happened back then. It happened. And objectively speaking, there's nothing I can do about it. But what I can do is learn from the past, learn from what my ancestors have went through. And I take advantage of what they've given me, and I get educated, and I do the best to solve issues related to both my community as well as the United States, whatever needs to be done, because that's the way I go about living my life. I'm not looking to celebrate anything in recognition of my ancestors, and I don't need the whole world to recognize it either. You can go on doing whatever it is that you want to do. I'm going to do whatever it is I need to do for myself. Now, this is just me speaking for me. I can't speak for every Black American, but that is me. And that's how I choose to live. Juneteenth is not something that I'm super concerned about. And it's unfortunate that we get to, when every time Black people get together for things like this, something evil, something inconsiderate, something ignorant, just continue. Some ignoramus comes along and they just want to destroy what goes on. While I don't agree that this particular day should have been observed, as far as every single Black American looking at this, when this was originally for the Texans themselves, I don't think that this in any way, shape, or form is this grounds to go and start killing other Black folks. And again, a big thing that I constantly talk about, because I like to keep us accountable first. Since this generation loves to talk about accountability, it seems like that's what we're lacking. It seems like that's what we don't want to discuss. is the accountability aspect as it relates to Black Americans themselves. And every time you have these discussions, Black Americans come along and they say, well, everyone kills their own race in their own way, in some way, shape, or form. Especially like it's like if you conceptualize Black on Black crime. To some, Black on Black crime is a myth because every race kills their own race somehow, some way. White on white, Hispanic on Hispanic, Indian on Indian, you name it. And I would agree with you that that is true. But however, the rule and the statistic bear out that Black Americans kill each other at a much higher rate than anybody. We kill each other much faster than the legacy, than we've killed more people amidst each other, as opposed to the numbers that bear out during the early 1900s when when Blacks were being lynched as a result by white people themselves. We've killed each other way more than the Klan ever has. And I imagine we probably have killed each other more than the slave masters have removed slaves back during the age of slavery as well. And that is not good. Nothing about that is okay. Nothing about races killing each other within themselves is okay at all. Every time you talk about it, we always want to add a third party when we should just simply be keeping each other accountable. The idea is to be better, not to be the same. So when you want to make that argument that all races kill each other, if 500 Hispanics killed each other, 1,000 white people killed each other, 2,000 Indians killed each other, and 3,000 Native Americans killed each other, and Black people killed no one, does that mean we're supposed to now start to practice murdering one another because every other race does the same thing? Which would damn near be surprising if none of us got murdered. That would damn near be a shock, but that doesn't happen. That hasn't happened, and it isn't going to happen. There's no restart to that. We have numbers. And the unfortunate part is that we are the highest in that chart. But imagine if we were zero and every other race was higher than us. Does that now mean we have to now equalize ourselves to them because they kill too? Do we want to be just like the other races? I don't think we do. But unfortunately, it seems like that's what we attempt to do. Oh, because other white people kill other white people, that means we're supposed to do it too. Oh, because Hispanics kill other Hispanics, that means we're supposed to do it too. The idea is for you to be better than them, not to be the same, right? So whenever we see other people do things that are disagreeable or goes against our culture or goes against our very image as people, I think the idea is to not do what they do, not to find excuses to do the same, not to be granted the same leeway for doing the same. And the reason why I think it's necessary for us to discuss things like this, because if you all claim that white people are the oppressors and we are the marginalized people should not be killing marginalized people. Less powerful people shouldn't be killing less powerful people, but the statistics bear out that we do. We're not killing the powerful. We're coming after each other. And unfortunately, these are young people that are doing this. But Black men or adults have been doing this for quite a long time, too, since the mid 1900s. Black men are dying at a much faster rate. And then you get situations like this where someone wants attention. So now they're going around just willy-nilly killing other black Americans. And that's not right. Even from where I live, not too long ago, a fight had broke out over on the other end, and they had to call the police over there because someone got into an argument. Someone was yelling insults, and as a result, they were all getting into a scuffle. Someone called the police, and the police had to end the party on Father's Day weekend. Matter of fact, on top of this story right here, a mass shooting happened in Willowbrook, Illinois, where 20-something people got shot, and they were all Black people. And done at the hands of other Blacks. As much as we like to say that white people are the ones that cause the most mass shootings, which perhaps that may very well be true. But it's not to negate the fact that Blacks don't commit mass shootings every day as well, because it certainly happens. They hold guns just as much as white people do. The point is, ladies and gentlemen, the color of your skin doesn't negate your actions. It doesn't mean that you don't do evil things. Just because you're marginalized doesn't mean you don't commit crimes. Crimes are no longer crimes just because you're Black. Accountability doesn't end because you're black. Constructive criticism doesn't end because you're black. If you're doing something wrong, you're doing something wrong, and you should be called out on it just like everyone else. You're not God. None of you are. But you sure purport yourself to be, because you're in a country that isn't of your own. I mean, like, seriously, is this a trend now that every time we gather together, we have to kill a person that is black? And then once it happens, we brush it under the rug as if it doesn't mean anything because it's common for black people to kill black folks? I don't understand the logic here. Have we become so desensitized to death that we think that situations like this is supposed to be allowed? And every excuse we give, similar to our mayor here in Chicago, Brandon Johnson, we just say we're not supposed to demonize the youth. They're young. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. So you're literally telling me that that's grounds to continue to be foolish, to be evil, and to be maniacally dumb. All because now that America's policies are changing and gearing in favor of you, that you're supposed to run around willy-nilly just doing whatever you want. You're not supposed to be accountable to yourself whatsoever anymore. This is what we're doing. Because imagine if the system was once again being veered towards white people, and their system allowed them to do the things that that you do to yourselves in droves, like they used to do to our ancestors back then. Imagine. And because they're white, guess what? There's no accountability for them. They could just do whatever they want. Some of you believe to this day white people are still not held accountable. I think they are held accountable in various ways. Maybe it might not be to your favor. Maybe it's not at the highest propensity of judgment that you're looking for, but white people are held accountable quite a lot. But you're not held accountable whatsoever. We see what happens in these videos. How many fights y'all get into and hardly no one stops it or gets arrested. How many of you all go into stores and you rob? But and again, I can hear the voices right now. Well, other races are going into these stores and doing the same thing. But yet and still, does that mean that y'all should go and rob too because other races are doing it? Again, listen to the logic. So because other races are in it, that means black people should be doing it too. So because they're acting childish, we need to do everything that another race does. Listen to yourselves. This is okay. Not that we should just be stopping, not that the parents should be holding these kids accountable, but that because other races are involved, it doesn't mean anything. We should just keep doing it because we can. That doesn't make sense, people. We're supposed to be better. We're not supposed to be worse. We're not supposed to be the same. I don't go around saying that because Johnny across the street can go around and rob grocery stores like Jewel's or Costco or Target, that I should be able to do the same thing should I decide as a person of color to go and steal. No. If my black ass is bold enough to go rob, my black ass is bold enough to go to jail too. And I'm bold enough to get put in the court system, and for a judge, whether white or black, the jury, white or black, they should all be able to judge me in an impartial manner and be able to tell me you are wrong. You're going to serve time. You're going to do your time. You're going to do what you're supposed to do. And you know what? I'm not going to get mad because guess what? I did it. I wanted to do it. I don't think because I'm black, I should get out. I think I should be doing time because I was bold enough to do the crime, right? But what do I know? Maybe my sensibility is uncommon and it's the wrong approach. But I always thought that perhaps maybe not doing harm to your neighbor is the better approach to having a better image as a race. Maybe perhaps not doing what everyone else does, regardless of how wicked the world is the better thing to do so that you won't get stereotyped, so that you won't be the example that the so-called racist white man is purporting you to be. That's what I thought, but I could be wrong. I could definitely be wrong because I have been wrong before quite a few times, and hundreds of times actually. And maybe I'm wrong about this one too. Maybe Asking black people to not commit crimes, not shoot each other, not disrespect one another is too much for black people to do. Maybe we just don't have the capacity to do it. Maybe we just love dysfunction. That's right, we do. We love it, and we've yet to acknowledge that we do. Hence is why we constantly go around and we think that because someone says something to us we don't like, it's racism. But hey, what do I know? I choose to be different, and I think that people should be able to celebrate without there being any complications. I don't think Juneteenth takes away from the 4th of July. People, millions of Americans still celebrate it. In fact, over 60% of Americans actually don't even know what Juneteenth is. Some still don't. Some people just don't get it at all. Some people just don't care. And that's okay if they don't. Honestly, I don't even think it was necessary. I think if you were going to celebrate, should have celebrated on the day where all black Americans actually were ratified from slavery. But I think people stigmatize Lincoln because Lincoln never actually really cared for the fact that black people were emancipated from slavery. The idea was to retain the North and the South to stay together. But slavery was separating them because the South wanted the rights to be able to continue slavery, in spite of the fact that the North wanted to get rid of it in the name of keeping the United States together. It didn't matter whether blacks got out or not. But how I look at it from an objective standpoint, if the man didn't care about blacks, that's fine. But his actions showed that he clearly wanted to get blacks out of the institution so that white people, so that their country could stay together. That's fine with me. As long as I ain't got to be shackled up under you, I think that's great. I don't have a problem with that. Am I going to struggle? Yeah, I was already struggling as a slave. Might as well struggle as a free man. Doesn't make a difference. I was already being called the N-word. If I was in my ancestors' shoes, I was already called the N-word. I was already called lower than dirt, animal, less than 2/3 of a person anyway. Why not go through hell again and try to make this happen and see if I can get through the system? Fight through it until me and the next generation and the next generation and the next generation eventually fights this thing until we can actually be considered equal under God, which we were not. And many people who established that premise, that precedent, were hypocrites because they were following a very practice that actually made humans less than equal. They were slaves. They were considered property. They were chattel. Nonetheless, that is a day that all African Americans were emancipated. But we still choose to institute our own day that had nothing to do with anybody from any other state except for Texas and claim that it was Freedom Day for all. But nonetheless, it's not a harmful day. It's not going to hurt anybody. Nobody's going to lose sleep. But I surmise that we should stop killing each other because it makes us look foolish. But me asking for that, I think, is too much because I don't think black Americans are going to stop anytime soon. In fact, I think they're going to be led to their own destruction based off of their own logic that they use and their excuses they use when these instances happen. I think everyone deserves the right to live, including us. But if you don't think you deserve the right to live and you think that these people should just foolishly go around with their retardation and continually commit carnage in the name of intemperance and being young and being delinquent or juvenile and just being completely like reprobates, by all means, do what you will. I choose not to kill my own. I choose not to kill anybody whatsoever. I don't care about race. I care about the humanity of a person. And I think we need to hold everyone accountable, including black people. But here we are. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this episode about Juneteenth, the Juneteenth massacre that happened on Juneteenth. Have a good day or good night wherever you reside, and I thank you for listening. If you got this far, like, subscribe to this channel if you enjoyed the content that I bring out, the episodes that are up and coming. And I hope to hear you in the comment section, and we all have a healthy debate about this matter, or if you just have a thought and not necessarily a debate. I hope to hear your voice. I hope to hear what you have to say. All right, ladies and gentlemen, with this, I say peace.